Welcome. Thanks everyone for joining this new member webinar for Trustworthy. Trustworthy is our company, and we make some software called the Family Operating System. I'm Nat Robinson, co-founder and CEO, and joined today by some of our team members. We've got Kyle Adamo here, our director of product, who's going to run the demo for us. We've got Cairo Amani from our support team, and we've got Taylor here from our marketing and branding team as well. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to do a few slides to get started, and then we're going to really focus most of our time and attention on showing you the ins and outs of Trustworthy, giving you some tips and tricks on how to make progress quickly and get into that really organized and prepared state, so that you know how to use it as you're onboarding, as you're getting started with Trustworthy, or maybe you'll learn a couple of things if you've already been using it for a couple of months. In terms of what we're solving for, what we see across all the thousands of households that are using Trustworthy is this sort of common problem of, you could call it information overload. Thousands of families telling us kind of the same thing. I have lots of bits of information and they're all over the place. These little silos of information across my life, whether that's a bank or financial, operational, or maybe some sort of emotional assets. It's all over the place. I'm worried that I'm going to lose track of all that stuff, and I'm certainly worried that my family won't be able to find it all if something happened to me, that they wouldn't know where to go to find all the important things. This is the problem that has obviously started in the information age, which we're now 60 years into. It's a problem that we see increasing with digital transformation, is sort of everything becomes digital first or digital only. And now with the advent of AI, we see this accelerating even more, with the ability to create more documents and more information and more images and more of everything being generated by AI. It turns out this problem has some real costs for families and their advisors, that the average American family is now spending more than 51 hours a year staying on top of household paperwork. If you're not on top of those things, the average American family is now paying $1,268 in late fees or penalties or cost to your credit. This is a number that's gone up considerably over the last couple of years. And then this sort of emotional tax, the anxiety that people feel. 84% of people reporting anxiety about home organization and upkeep and just staying on top of things and staying abreast of things. We were really inspired when we started Trustworthy to see that families, almost every family that we've talked to, had built some kind of DIY system using the tools at hand, using files and folders, using digital equivalents, and really whatever families felt most comfortable with. And we tried using them ourselves and found that they all kind of fell short in terms of our need, that they all started with a blank page. They relied solely on you to think about or remember all the things that you wanted to put in there. There was no help or guidance. They relied solely on you to keep everything up to date and make sure that it was current. When you put information into a Word document or a spreadsheet or even a piece of paper, it's what we call a dumb container. The container doesn't know anything about the information and can't offer a return on that information. It can't offer value back based on what it knows. Specifically, they really don't handle what we call temporal sharing, meaning if I put a bunch of information in a spreadsheet, I can't say to you, okay, look at rows 1 through 10, but don't look at rows 10 through 15 until later. I don't want you to see that information yet. So a lot of the systems that we looked at just didn't handle that scenario. And that can be a really important element when you consider different kinds of family dynamics across the lifetime of the system. Some of them free tools, and others had questionable security and business models. That wasn't something we thought would work. And they didn't offer any auxiliary service or help beyond just sort of knowledge base and support. And we thought that could be an interesting element, or actually essential for some families. They just weren't really purpose built. So we built the family operating system to make it really safe and easy for you to get a view of all that information in one place so that you can access it when you need it. You can share it with loved ones and your trusted professionals, and that everyone had access to the right information at the right time. Uh, the big use cases that we saw people building systems for and adopting Trustworthy for were, I want access and utility to my information wherever I am in the moment that I need it. I don't want to wait. I'm trying to get something done. So what's the VIN number to the car? What's my kid's social security numbers? Where are those important documents? I need a birth certificate or a marriage certificate, or I'm trying to get something done right now. I need these documents. I need to have access to these documents right now. The other big one was, of course, if I get hit by a bus, will my family know where to go to find all the important things so they can have continuity of life? So they won't spend months or years unpacking the estate and trying to figure everything out. Those are sort of the primary ones we started with. And what we've learned from members as we've gone along is, hey, this is great for my family, but I really want to get this for my parents or my in-laws. Their timeline feels even more urgent than mine. How do I get them set up and prepared for the inevitable estate transition? And then sometimes it's after the fact, a loved one has passed away. We're using Trustworthy to collect all the information across the different stakeholders, across the household, across the estate, maybe for a probate or some other function, or just to have access so the family has access to all the information. And then this last one is really intriguing, something we fully embrace and support. It's this idea of household equity. How do we make sure that everyone who needs access in the household has access to the right information when they need it, that there's no sort of black boxes of things happening that I don't really know the details about or know where to go to get the information. And this is a really essential for modern families to have this idea of full disclosure or transparency across the household. Of course, some of the big components of Trustworthy are collaboration and automation to help you get organized, but really a fundamental building block of Trustworthy is this idea of keeping your information safe and private. We have really built a lot of facility and Trustworthy where we're keeping your information safe, and we sort of force you to be in a more elevated posture in terms of your family information security. And that's what we hear from most of our members is, hey, look, I'm now being more secure and more mindful about the ways that I store information and share information now that I've adopted Trustworthy. Of course, we do all the things in terms of our infrastructure and philosophy and company and training and practices that you'd expect, and have all the sort of tactics and techniques like multi-factor authentication. You must have a robust password. You must have multi-factor authentication turned on before you can put one bit of information on Trustworthy. We support biometric authentication. We encrypt everything in all states. We're constantly doing threat detection across the network. So if you sign on in Boise, Idaho, and then a minute later you sign on in Austria, we're going to detect that and figure out that something's up. We have all the certification. This is really important in terms of the way that we get audited by, a few times a year. It's not just us saying it's secure. There's a third-party auditing firm or the couple that we work with that are constantly looking at our practices to say that all the things that you say you're doing, you're actually doing. So this takes the form of SOC 2 and SOC 3 compliance. We're also HIPAA compliant. We're GDPR compliant, which is not a US standard, but because we have expats all around the world and in Europe, it's a standard we wanted to adopt, or we needed to adopt. We have CCPA for California, which is a privacy standard for California. We really have a lot of validation of all the work that we've done to be secure. We work with banks, big banks, and other large firms who've done a lot of diligence on Trustworthy. And we're constantly testing the boundaries of our security, meaning we have penetration tests, we have white hat hacker programs and bug bounties. We're really sort of constantly pressure testing our security to make sure that it is secure at all times for you and your family. We may have more security questions. If you want more technical detail, we try and be as transparent as possible on our website. Right at the top of the website, there's a link that says security, or you can just go to trustworthy.com/security. I know a lot of people had questions about security coming into the webinar, so we wanted to address that up front. I just mentioned briefly the service component that we wrap around our software. So we've built a now North American network, so US and Canada, network of trustworthy certified experts that we've recruited from different organizations, just sort of different professional organizations like photo managers, the National Association of Professional Organizers, the National Association of Senior Move Managers, and daily money managers, fiduciaries, etc. The reason we start there is because these organizations have been around for a long time. They have great professional ethics and standards for their members. So it makes a ton of sense to recruit there. And then we put these folks through a background check of our own. We put them through platform certification, so we know they know the platform. They all adopt it personally in their own households. And are very authentic in that adoption, saying, like, I wouldn't endorse this unless I was using it myself. And it's a great service layer around our software that if you're a busy modern family and what we call time starved, that you can work with one of these professionals either as a coach or to completely alleviate the load of getting things into Trustworthy. They can take you from 0 to done in a very short amount of time if you want to outsource that. They're also great at working with parents. I think really the big use case is around parents. If you're geographically removed from your parents and you want to help them get everything set up in Trustworthy and get their estate prepared, Trustworthy certified experts have done this for now hundreds of our members, and it works fantastically. We usually, more often than not, find someone in their town or very nearby. They'll go in and work with parents and have a conversation with about their needs and what they're shooting for, and then help them get everything dialed in and Trustworthy. So that's a really great additional service that's unique to us. I'm going to come back in a little bit after we've done the demo and talk about some other options, some other programs that we have. But right now I'm going to hand over to Kyle, and he's going to lead you through the demo.
All right. Okay, I'm sharing now. So I'm going to spend a bunch of time in the web app. We also have a mobile app, which we'll touch on in a bit as well. The first thing I want to get into for people who are brand new is I'm going to move a browser over here. I got multiple scenarios running in my tabs here. This one that I'm in is a brand new user, so you've just signed up or you just recently signed up. One thing I want to point out that Trustworthy does when you first sign up for Trustworthy, it's going to ask you a couple of questions about how many people, who's in your household, how many people, what are their ages. Once you go through that, what the system does is if you click on any of these categories, you'll see this concept of pre-populated. And you'll see this throughout where we look at households of a similar makeup and we generate these placeholder tiles that reflect a household of your makeup so that you know the things that you're supposed to put in here. And these are placeholders. You can remove them if you don't have, like if you don't have 2 cars, you can delete this tile. To accept one of the tiles and say, okay, yeah, I actually have this thing, just clicking on it and then clicking continue will take you into this wizard flow that steps you through the things that you want to capture about this. You don't have to fill in everything here. There's like a little steps down the left-hand side you can fast track through, or you can go through the wizard and click next and whatnot. Anytime you want to bounce out of this flow, you can just use this breadcrumb in the top, and you can see this one no longer says pre-populated. We've sort of adopted that tile. We're going to move this into our account. So when Nat mentioned something about, not starting with a blank page, this is the idea that we're going to give you these placeholders so you've got an idea of the things that you should have that a lot of people don't know. And some people are paralyzed when they first start. They're like, what should I be putting in here? These will give you some clues and some examples, but it's not, it doesn't cover everything that we've seen our users do. There's all sorts of stuff that people are tracking in these categories. And I'm going to jump into an account now that's a bit more fully populated. I'm logged into an account as David Reynolds. He's the account owner of the Reynolds family account. A couple things that you see on your dashboard right away. The inbox we'll talk about in a minute because it's key to helping you sort of get data into Trustworthy efficiently. But I want to talk about this idea of collaborators, just to point out that you're going to see these collaborators here. We're going to do a dive into collaborators in a couple moments. This was a top request when we asked for the sorts of things that people wanted to see on this webinar. Collaboration and some of the nuance around that were very plentiful as far as questions. So we'll go through that in some detail. The other thing that's important here also on your dashboard is this idea of reminders. Any document that you upload to Trustworthy is subject to a reminder, and most of the time those reminders will be automated. When we analyze documents, which I'll show you in a minute, we're always looking for things like expiry dates and end dates and renewal dates, and those will help us generate these reminders that will get circulated by email notification and push notifications. And these are items that stand out from maybe managing this with like Google Drive or something like that, where it's never going to generate a reminder about a document that you've put in there. You can have these reminders that get created automatically, but you can also manually and go add a reminder to anything. And I'll show you how that works in a couple of minutes. Let's take a quick peek down some of these categories, and then we'll talk about what's the most efficient way to build things out and how do we use this inbox. First, I want to click into family IDs just to show you some of the items in here. Family IDs will represent the people within your household. And if I click into any one of these tiles, what you're going to see is ID cards for this person. And there's no limit to how many ID cards you can add. If you have multiple passports, like some people do, you can come down to the bottom and say new ID and create a new passport. If you want to track something like a loyalty card or something that's not defaulted on screen when you first open here, you can say add a new travel membership or add other ID. We'll see other ID get used for things like military ID. You can create those on the fly as you get going, and there's no limit to what you can have in here. You'll also see a lot of these reminders down the right-hand side, and these all got generated automatically just by uploading these files to this area. There's something I want to point out about files and Trustworthy. It's a file-heavy system, of course, and not only are you tracking ID cards, but there's things like insurance policies, there's trusts, there's wills, there's powers of attorney. Any file, you can preview it in Trustworthy just by clicking on it. And you'll get, if it's a multiple page file, you'll see a little navigation toolbar down here to allow you to skip through the pages. But the reason I'm showing you this, I just want to talk about a feature that a lot of our clients use for those sorts of, let's call them temporal relationships, where you've got a life moment where you need to share a piece of data with somebody, but it's very temporary. You don't want to invite them as a collaborator. They don't need long-term access to your account. You just want to share this ID with them. Let's say this is a mortgage broker, and I want to share this ID with this mortgage broker. One way I can do that is through the share button at the top. And this allows us to specify for how long do we want this file to be available for. And if I choose, let's say I choose 1 hour, essentially what I'm going to get here is a link that I can share with this person over email or text or however I'm communicating with them. They'll be able to click that link. They'll be pretty low friction. They won't have to create an account. They'll see the file. They'll be able to get the information they need. You'll get an email notification that they clicked the link. And you'll also get one notification in about 60 minutes to say that this file has been, or that this link is expired, so you know that it's no longer online. And this is just like an incremental step forward in your privacy and security posture, because previously how you do this is you would snap a photo on your phone, you'd attach it to an email, you'd send it to their inbox, and it probably would live there forever in their inbox. This way, you're not sending that to their inbox, you're just sending this link. Okay, that secure links is a great way for those like really temporal sharing moments that you encounter. And when it comes to secure links, let's say you're just getting started or you're going through a lot of sharing with people. If you want to just get a quick summary of all the different links that are out there that are active right now, you can click on this under your account menu. There's a secure links area that'll show you these live links that are out there. You can choose to delete it if you know the job is done, or if you need to reshare it, you can copy the link again. Okay, I just wanted to point out that while we're in there. Let me go to finance for a minute. Finance would be a collection of all of your household's bank accounts. credit cards, investment accounts, and whatnot. A good thing to point out here is you can create these items manually just by clicking add, but there's also a Plaid capability in here. And if you don't know Plaid, they're sort of like the de facto middleman between applications like ours and banking institutions. So they're this clearinghouse of connections to different banks where they do this secure exchange that allows you to connect to your institution here and pull in bank accounts. So if you bank with Wells Fargo, for example, you could open up Plaid, you could find Wells Fargo, you can authenticate there, and it's going to pull in that banking information to populate these tiles and just sort of fast track the setup of this finance category. Let me look at property for a moment, and then we'll jump into so how do I build out all these tiles and how do I get organized? I'm going to jump into one of my properties, or one of my real estate properties. The property category is more than just real estate. You'll see vehicles in here. You'll see electronics. There could be heirlooms, artwork, high value items. You can store all of those items in here. And if I jump into, say, this Park City ski chalet, we'll start to see a few things here. And one of the things I want to point out is how these relationships between things in Trustworthy start to emerge in some of these pages. In this case, I get a small profile on the property, like where it's located and what the ownership status is. But I also get a list of owners that I can build out. And these are links to other areas in Trustworthy. An owner doesn't necessarily need to just be a family member. It could be a trust. It could be a business from your business category, or it could be a contact from your contact category. You can link all those different types of people up. In my case, I have a trust, and I can jump right to that trust if I want. And I've got David Reynolds and Laura Reynolds, who are family IDs inside my account. They're linked up as owners. I've also got a mortgage in here that comes out of my finance category. I don't have insurance in here yet, but you'll see what happens in a moment. When I upload an insurance file, it'll form this link automatically. I'll show you that briefly. Another thing to note is on any page in Trustworthy, whether it's a bank account, a person, a property, you have this ability to track additional files. And furthermore, you can create these like subfolders in here for different context-specific files that you want to store. I created a folder called closing documents. I could create a folder called contractor receipts, for example, and dump any invoices I get from contractors about maintenance or repair and renovation. I can keep those all contained there. So just do know that you can create these additional folders just to further organize the files that might be attached to a home or a bank account or something like that. On your homes, there's also this idea of service and utilities, which piggybacks on our contacts, where essentially you can link up things like your service providers. So for example, I have a list of contacts that's already in there, and I can link those contacts up to these properties so that I can build this full profile of all the people and companies that help this run. So most commonly, we see utilities and service providers, we'll see tradespeople, and sometimes neighbors will even be set up in here. So we can go through all these other categories, but before I do that, what I want to do is talk about something called the inbox. The inbox is a relatively recent innovation on our end. It's a low friction way to securely send data to Trustworthy without having to immediately figure out where you're going to file it. You can just get it there. Once it's there, then you can start to file it and put stuff in the right place. And there's an AI layer on top of this called Autopilot that's going to help you through those steps of figuring out where to file this. One thing that we find when people are onboarding is there's different phases that people go through. The first phase is let me go find all my files and let's get them into Trustworthy. That's where the inbox is really handy. You don't have to think about how you're organizing it. Just go get the files, whether they're already digital in like a Dropbox or something like that, or you've got them in your photo reel, which I've seen a lot of, or they're in a shoebox and you need to use their iOS app to scan them, to digitize them. Or they're in your email and you want to forward them into Trustworthy. There's all these different ways to get stuff into the inbox. Let me show you one that's really common, this idea of email to inbox. Before we do that, I just want to point this out to people who are new, who haven't uncovered this yet. Under your account menu, you'll find an option here called email to inbox. And what's in here is an email address that's unique to your account. And this email address is ideally what you're going to do with it is set this up as a contact in your contact manager, whatever integrates with your email. So if you're a Google user, this could be Google Contacts. If you're an Apple user, this could be Apple Contacts, Outlook Contacts. If you set it up in there, so I've got my Google Contacts open here, and I've created a record called Trustworthy Inbox, and I've put in my email address in there. What this means is if I have an email with files attached to it that comes in, this is an example of a file that came in from insurance broker, I can simply forward this email and pick my inbox contact and send it. And what it's going to do is it's going to remove these attachments from the email and put them in my Trustworthy inbox. And we'll see those snap in here in a moment. The inbox you can visualize in a couple different ways. One is on your dashboard. You'll see sort of the most recent files in there. And then there's also this drawer that will follow you around Trustworthy. That's going to be an important part of the next step here. So I've got some files that came in from my inbox. In a moment, our AI is going to start analyzing these, and then it'll come up with a plan as to what to do with those. While we're waiting for that, I just want to touch on another common way that files get into Trustworthy. And that's through our iOS app. So let me open up our app here. There we go. Get the right one. So what I like about the app is it's a pretty easy way to scan things that you've got that are physical. So this could be through, you've opened up the mail. There's a new piece of mail in there that's like an insurance policy summary or auto insurance summary. You can snap, you can do a scan of it from the mobile device. And that's what I'm going to do now. You can see down here, there's a scan function. This is what we're going to use for this insurance policy I have here. I have an auto insurance, and I'm just going to scan and go to scan document. And I can point at this doc. It's going to scan it. I can click save. If I had multiple pages, I could just flip the page and do the next one. And what happens right away is it uploads that to the inbox. You can see that it's sort of snapped in over here. It's going to start analyzing it there. But you can also file these and analyze them on the device itself. It's matching this attachment right now. And it's going to come up with a plan as to what to do with it. I'm going to go back to desktop just to show you this, where it's a bit easier to see what's going on. So these files that landed in my inbox, I've sent a few from my email that have landed here. I just scanned that item from my mobile device that landed here. We have a Chrome extension as well that can do things like screenshots. And why you might use that, let's say you did an online claim submission like this. After you submit the medical insurance claim, there's like a confirmation page. Sometimes you never know, is this something I should be saving? If there's a question about whether or not you should save this image of this, you can use our Chrome extension, and it's got a way to scan or take screenshots of pages, because sometimes things aren't always a file that you can upload. Sometimes you just need to grab a screenshot of something, and you can use the screenshot function and send it to the inbox as well. The Chrome extension just works in Chrome for now, so if that's your browser, you can use that extension to grab screenshots. It can also interact with your Gmail attachments a bit, and there's more functionality coming in the future as our roadmap develops around that. But let me jump back into Trustworthy. Let's talk about these things that are in the inbox. There's a couple things that happen when stuff lands in the inbox. One is we analyze the file to determine what it is. So this happened to be a life insurance policy, and you can see that there's a lot of facts about this file that we've learned and understand. We've learned and understood these facts, and we're writing a summary about this, so it's really easy to know what it is. And then we're also going to suggest a file name on things just to help it be more discoverable and more searchable, because it's not always you who's using Trustworthy who knows these file conventions, file naming conventions. If you have collaborators, or God forbid something happens to you and someone needs to take over your account to settle your estate, having clear file names is always helpful. Where that plays off the most. I see my lawyer likes to send me files that are called sent from Xerox.pdf. What it'll do is it'll write a better file name than that. So not only does it analyze those files to determine what it is, but there's a drawer that opens down the left-hand side. We looked at it before, but that drawer is going to be helpful to making sure we get these files to the right spot. You can access that drawer just by clicking inbox, or you can click on any one of these files and it's going to take you there. This drawer is the reason we want to use these files in the drawer like this is they come with these hints to tell you what to do with the file, and it's going to stay open while you move these files to the right spot. Let's do an example of this life insurance policy. There's a couple states that you can be in when files land in your inbox. One is when we analyze the file, we also analyze all of your Trustworthy. If we've never seen this insurance policy before, or this ID before, or this person before, or this home before, we're going to recommend that you add that item to Trustworthy, and it's going to create a new space in a location for that. So in this case, I've got a insurance policy that we've never seen before. It's not represented in my insurance category yet. So we're giving you this option to add. And here's what happens when you click add. It's going to create a new space inside my insurance category for this file. And then how you interact with the inbox, the goal of the inbox is to empty it. So you can drag this file out of the inbox over to the spot where it's most appropriate. In this case, this is a policy. So I'm going to drag it to this policy block on my insurance page. And then what it's going to do is it's going to extract all the information that we need to fill out this form, so you don't have to retype it. So in many cases, you can review it and confirm it and just click accept all. And what it's going to do is going to map it to an insurance provider, provide you links to like claims pages and websites, stores the file, stores the policy number, links it up to members that it finds in your system, creates a reminder over here for your end date. And the only thing that's left to do is to give it a better name. Okay, so you can see all of these different files here. Here's these are all net new. We didn't know about these files before, so it's asking me to add. So this will do it. It'll allow me to do that with all these different things. If I click add on this auto insurance, it'll create a new space for this auto insurance in my insurance category. Same process here. I just drag it over, and it's going to analyze that my data and tell me how to map these up. And what I like about this.
While you're there, we had a question about how would I leave an instruction for someone who didn't know what this was, or like a note or something to say, hey, this is, give context for what this particular piece of the system is about.
So that's a good question. So there's a couple ways that I've seen this happen. One is on any given page, there's always a notes area where you can add a note. So if it's an insurance policy, or it's a trust, or it's a will, or it's a bank account, you'll always have a note that you can add to say that this is, or you could say, anything about this vehicle or this policy, you can capture that in notes. The other thing that I've seen is, let me go to the finance category because this comes up from time to time here. Whereas sometimes people want to leave notes or instructions that pertain to all of finance instead of on every individual account with a specific note. They want to create something that someone's going to see that's right at the top of the list that says, John, if I've died, click here. One thing that I've seen people do is basically create a placeholder item in here. And give it a good name. And there's a way that you can organize these items on screen, and you can shift that item right to the top. So this is a bit of a workaround, but here's what I've seen people do is skip right to the nickname of this and say, and you can see how it's created this tile. You can actually drag this to the front of your list, so it's right at the top. You could write it in all caps if you need to. You could even upload a specific icon or something like that. But you could then draft notes in here or upload files that are your instruction set. So this is what to do with my finance if I've passed away. I've seen people drop files in here and they just are using this tile, almost like a fake bank account that just sits at the top of their list just in case they want to leave instructions about finance. And you can do this in all the different categories. I've seen a lot of different workarounds of how people do this. So there's two different ways they can leave notes and instructions on any individual page or at this top level. Just drag a tile to the top of the list and put your files in there that contain the instruction set.
Great. Good job. Thank you. That's a good tip. A nice little hack there.
Yeah, there's more where that came from. Let me grab a couple other files. I want to show a couple other scenarios here with files that might come in. So let's do this. I'm going to grab passport. So you can also bulk upload files. That's another way to get things in. So if you already have files digital on your machine, you can just grab a bunch of those files and drag them in. I'm dropping a couple new files in here. One is a gas bill that doesn't include any hints to a home in there. Essentially, it's not going to come up with a suggestion for me. Like this told me what I should do with it. This particular one is a file I've used just to show this example, where even if it doesn't give you a suggestion, you can still move it to a spot where it needs to be. So this is a gas statement. The AI didn't give me any sort of suggestion on what to do with this. Well, actually, it did, I guess, after all. If there's no suggestion and you don't get these links to things, what you need to do is go open up the page where you want that file to go. So let's say it's something that needs to go into your property category and you want to put it in this river escape home and you want to put it into maybe you want to create a subfolder called gas bills. You can just drag it over there. Okay, that's what, if there's no suggestion here, just keep in mind, just navigate to where you want it to go and drag it out of your inbox. This one is a bit different in that there's already a place for this file. So instead of telling me to add, it's going to take me right to where this should go. And it's telling me that this is a passport. It should go with David Reynolds. If I click open, it's going to take me to that spot inside family IDs. And all I want to do here is just move this file over to the passport area.
Kyle, how does it know there's a place for it already?
It does that. So when it analyzes the file, it determines what it is. So it's, in this case, it knew it was something related to a family ID. It analyzes my trustworthy data to say, is there a family ID that has the same name or a similar name to what I'm seeing here? And if it does find that, it's going to give you that open option. That's just like a hyperlink to where it should go. And then once you get to that page, just drag the file over to whatever spot. So a lot of these pages have spots that are like pre-built for files that you can drag files into. In many cases, that's what your target destination is, to move it over to one of those spots. But in lieu of that, let's do an example of something like a bank statement. This is a good example. So the bank statement's going to tell me to create a new bank account in my finance category. There's not an area like up here on the page for you to store that file. You can drag it to the additional files area. So it's going to snap in with a suggestion here in a moment. So here it's saying new bank account. I can click add. There's no area on the main top of the page. We call these hero blocks. There's no spot for bank statements there, but you can still drag it into your files area. And if there are like those autofills, they're still going to pop up even though you dropped it there. So you can see with this bank statement, it's going to extract all that data. It's going to fill in my entire finance category. And then all I need to do is call this David's savings. Okay. And essentially what I ended up with, if I go back to my finance category, it created this tile. It filled in all the data for me. Okay, so the reason it knows what to do with them is because it analyzed the file type, it analyzed your data, it came up with a plan. Not everything will be covered. Things like if you dropped a marriage certificate in here, it might not know what to do with it. We're evolving the files that we support and understand every day, so they'll always get better over time. But for now, insurance, IDs, trusts, those types of things, we have pretty good support for those, and bank statements as well. All right, let's talk a bit about collaboration. Let's do this. Let's go to manage access. This is where the magic happens when it comes to collaboration. So there's a lot of reasons why you might invite people to your account. In many cases, you're going to invite a spouse or most trusted loved one, someone who might have full access to your account, so they can help you get organized. You might also invite other people. It could be other family members that aren't part of your direct household, where you need to share bits of Trustworthy with them. Or you might invite professionals like an accountant, and you want to share parts of Trustworthy with them. I can see on my list here, I've got some full access collaborators. Those are people who have access to everything in Trustworthy. And then I've got partial access collaborators, and they'll have more limited access to things in Trustworthy, where you can specify exactly what categories they need access to or individual items within a category. And I'll go through this in just a second. We also have this concept of legacy access. So what this is are people who don't have any access to Trustworthy now, but you want to designate them as a legacy access contact, and there's someone who could get promoted to full access in the event of your passing. So these are people, it could be, in my case, my sister is one of these people. She doesn't have access to Trustworthy as a collaborator, but she's in here as legacy access. So if something happens to me, she can go through the identity verification process with our team and potentially get promoted to full access there. So we'd recommend that everybody has, at least one collaborator, and you should have a legacy access collaborator as well, someone who can take over the account. Could be a trustee, it could be a state attorney, it could be a family member, you name it. So let me just start from scratch here. Let's say I wanted to add a family member to Trustworthy as a collaborator. When you first click to add a new collaborator, it's going to show you people who are your family IDs, and it's also going to show contacts. So people who are out there in your contacts, you might have a business partner, or you might have a trustee or a beneficiary or someone who's in your contacts. You can promote them to a collaborator just by selecting them here. If it's someone net new who's not already represented in your Trustworthy, you can say add someone new. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my adult children, David Richardson, and I'm going to invite him as a collaborator. Okay, this is the page where you get a chance to determine what level of access they have. If David's going to have full access to my account, that means he'll see all categories. He'll see everything new that goes into any category. He can basically access anything in the system. That's what I would choose, and that's common for spouses or most trusted loved ones. A lot of your collaborators, though, are going to be partial access, meaning they only need access to bits of Trustworthy. And this is where I can select partial access and go to configure access. And this is where we can determine exactly what they need. Let's say David only needs access to the finance category, and he's going to get access to a couple things inside taxes. So there's a way that you can, narrow this down so you're not giving access to everything. So if you just leave it checked and it says all, that means they'll see everything that ever lands inside finance. But if you want to get really granular and share just one or two things, let's say David is part of my V&V company and he needs to access to these tax returns, but nothing else in my tax category, I can do this where I pick just those items, and you'll see that's got a count of 2. I can review this. I also get this chance to say, okay, you know what? They're going to have some access now, but I also want to flag them as legacy access, which means that if I pass away, they can be promoted to full access so they can help settle the estate. Some of your collaborators will be both they'll have some access now and then you want to promote them later, that's when you use this legacy access flag. It just verifies that this is a known person who's subject to being promoted to a full access collaborator. Okay, and when you send the invitation, they'll get an email. Oftentimes we see people do outreach in advance to say, hey, I'm using this tool Trustworthy. Here's what it is. You expect to see an invite from me, and here's why. But they'll get an invite when this goes out, and then it's just a couple clicks to sign up and join your account. So one thing I want to point out, I'm going to flip to another account briefly. Just give me a second here. It's this idea of account switching. It's not something we talk about too frequently, but sometimes, let's say you have your own account in Trustworthy, but you also get your parents on their own Trustworthy account, and they invite you as a collaborator into their account. There's a way that you can switch between accounts under a single login. So I'm logged into my own account, David Reynolds, as David Reynolds, and then I can go to switch household under my account menu. And here's where I can go into, maybe it's my ex-wife's account or maybe it's my parents' account. I can jump into those accounts and I'll be subject to whatever permissions they granted me into their account. You could have 2 items in here. You could have 10 items in here. It really depends. If you're one of our Trustworthy certified experts, you may have been invited to multiple accounts, in which case you'll see multiple accounts listed here and you can jump back and forth between them. Okay. I'm kind of not looking at the questions as they come through. Is there any questions that we should address right now?
Yeah, I think now's a good time to take some Q&A. We have this great one from Sharon. Understanding that the primary purpose is to have all the information together for heirs when you pass. I just want to address that. We actually take a whole life approach to Trustworthy, that it's not just about the sort of end of life use case. One of the real primary reasons that members will build this is so that they have access to their information their whole life. So we have members starting in their 20s and 30s, and members in their late 60s and early 70s who have joined for different reasons. Many folks just want to have access to their information whenever they need it in a digital form that's easily accessible, either in their pocket or on a web browser. So that's a really big component of folks adopting Trustworthy. Yes, there are also end-of-life use cases. Sharon, you'd asked about taxes, and I wanted to answer this because this is how I use it with my accountant. So I've invited my accountant to Trustworthy. He's what we call a limited access collaborator. He only has access to the taxes category. That's kind of a mouthful, tongue twister. Access to the taxes category. And so I collect all my files there all year long in terms of the charitable donations or filings or bank statements or whatever. And then when I'm ready to file taxes or at tax time, he has access to all those files in the current tax year. Kyle, if you go to taxes, maybe we can show what that might look like. And then he extracts all those files, and then he files my tax returns and then uploads the completed tax returns for me when they're done. And that's sort of the complete life cycle of the tax, the way that I work with my accountant. That also could work with your wealth advisor who might be uploading statements or progress reports. It could be your estate planning attorney. It could be a business manager or a daily money manager, really anyone that you choose to work with, and giving them the sort of appropriate amount of access that you would want to have them have in your system. So Kyra, I thought I'd jump on that because I wanted to give a personal account of how I answer that. But do you want to talk us through some of the other questions?
Yeah, Kyle, someone asked right before you switch to collaboration, if you have 20 different pages to be scanned, but they're all different bills and documents, can they be scanned and emailed in one file?
This is a great question. So the short answer is not yet. They'd have to, we're not going to be able to tell where one file ends and one file begins. If you're okay with having one big file with a bunch of bills on it, stored in Trustworthy, that's okay. You could send it like that. But one thing that we see a lot of people do is, especially when taking an entire filing cabinet and digitizing it using a desktop scanner, they just want to throw a stack of papers into the scanner and have it scan through. But those could be like one of those files could be a will, and then there could be closing documents, then there could be utility bills. We're not going to be able to tell where one document ends and begins yet. So our AI isn't able to sort that out yet. So one thing I would suggest is, if you are doing that, split them into separate scans. So scan the will, send that through, scan the power of attorney, send that through, keep them as separate files for now. We'll do an announcement when we have the capability to parse through one big PDF and break it into separate files. As of right now, we can't do that. But that's a great question. That's where we want to get to.
Yeah, I've struggled with this too. I'll add some context, as we have actually done an integration with Ricoh ScanSnap scanners, because they're a great prosumer scanner. The scanner can't detect either, right? That I have the same challenge in scanning things in, is I have to separate the files if I want separate PDFs, that the scanner can't separate them either. I think we'll have a better chance of doing that with the AI system that we've built. In the meantime, sort of horses for courses. If you have one really big file, like a trust or will or something, you can put that in the scanner and scan it in as one document. Even lots of little files, probably the mobile scanner that we've built is a better solution for doing lots of files quickly. You saw how quickly Kyle was able to scan in that one file. You can pretty much go bam, 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 bam across a lot of files using the Trustworthy mobile app. So just a little bit of added context.
Thank you. And my favorite question, when can we expect an Android app? I know we're close, so do you want to talk about it?
Yeah. There's one other question I saw that I didn't talk about. I just want to address quick because it's a short story. Someone said, if you close an account, how can you remove it from this category? So let's say you close the bank account and it's no longer relevant to you. This can apply to anything. You sold a home. You can use this little, I don't know, what do we call this menu? Falafel menu, kebab menu, the 3 dots menu. And you can say archive. And what archive does is it hides it from this category. So let's say that's a bank account that I want to hold on to it for posterity, or maybe it's a real estate and I want to hold on to that and all the files related with it, but I don't want it to clutter up my account. I can archive it. And then once something's archived, you'll see this show archive thing on your screen. And you can still access the data, but you can hide it temporarily. And that applies to anything. It only applies to these item cards. You can't archive specific files as of yet. Sorry, just wanted to
this is great for, you sold a car, but you wanted to keep all the records related to the car, for example. You don't need to see it, right there in part of your active system, but you might want to keep access to all those files for posterity.
Let's jump on the Android app topic. This was our #1 feature request. And this is in flight now. We're testing. I've got an Android app running on my Android device now. If we had more time, I'd show it to you, but take my word for it. I'm running it. We're expecting a beta launch at the end of the year. So we're trying to get it out there before the new year. And we'll be circulating that to people who've initially to a beta group that we have, or hand raisers who said, I want to be early on the Android app. If you want to be on the Android app, ahead of schedule before other people, just reach out to support@trustworthy.com, or maybe post your name into the chat right now. And we'll try and get it to you. So it's going to be a lot like the iOS app, just integrated with the Android operating system. It'll have scanning capabilities and all that stuff built in. So we're really excited about that. It's been a long time coming.
Thanks, Kyle. Another good question. How does Trustworthy know when someone has passed away if they have no collaborators?
This is a good question. We don't. So someone needs to know that you're using Trustworthy, and that's where your data is. So that's why it's so important to have collaborators in your system. So we are going to be building a feature that allows collaborators to say, hey, the account owner has passed away. It's not in there yet. You'll have to reach out to support. We'll look for verification of their passing away, like death certificate or something like that. And then we'll put you through an identity verification process to make sure you are who you say you are. And then promote you to full access. If you don't have collaborators or anyone who's legacy access in your system, I don't know, it's kind of like a tree falling in the forest and no one's around to hear it. So Invite collaborators. That's a key part of it.
Yeah, I guess you could put a note in your safety deposit box or your file cabinet or something.
Great idea.
But that might not get found, and this is one of the common problems that we see across estate transitions is things just don't get found. That's a big reason to start to prepare your estate in Trustworthy and add those collaborators so they know exactly where to go to find what we lovingly call the treasure map. It's sort of like that doesn't have to be in Trustworthy, but even if you had a pointer to where it is, and we call it the treasure map because one of our early members was a retired Navy captain who had actually buried precious metals on his properties. And we said, do your family know where to go to find those things should something happen to you? And then we were like, wait, he was in the Navy. He has treasure. He's technically a pirate. And so sort of with this metaphor for trust, it became the sort of the treasure map of all the things that you want to have access to whenever you need it, but also that you want your loved ones to find.
Yeah, and Beth had a related question about legacy access. It seems like, does everyone who's you've named as legacy access have equal access? As of right now, they do. They'll get promoted. So you could leave notes in your account as to how you want this to happen. But for now, the way it works is everyone is treated equal and they're promoted to full access. This is a place that we're open to feedback on how we'd like to see it work. We are going to be sort of reopening how this works in the next calendar year to add some new functionality around this to make it easier to transition accounts. But there's no functionality that says like, here's the ranking of people within your account.
Awesome. I think we're down to our last two, so I'm just going to combine them while we're on the finance page. Are we able to see our balances and net worth?
I feel like Steve had a sneak peek on the roadmap or something. This is a hot topic. This is something that Nat and I talk about frequently, and I think this is you'll see an iteration in the future that gets closer to this. The idea of bringing balances onto these accounts. As of right now, there's no balances. It's strictly the treasure map. It doesn't tell you how much treasure is there, but we have this capability through accounts that are connected via Plaid to potentially pull that balance in on some regularity, or give you a field just to type balances in. And this would go for not only things that are on your finance category, but potentially properties, insurance policies, things that could have a value associated with them. So we are working towards a net worth statement or some sort of reporting that allows you to analyze net worth based on these bank accounts. It's not in there yet, but it is something that is frequently requested, and we have a path forward in our roadmap.
Thanks.
Thanks for that one, Steve.
Yeah. One of the questions that we had ahead of the seminar, since we have maybe 30 seconds left, is where do I upload a trust and will? Where do I upload my legal documents?
Yeah, so in your legal category is a great place to start. You'll see the types of templates that we have here: wills, trusts, powers of attorney, medical directives, other legal documents. These could be business documents or things like that. This is where this stuff will go. Again, a trust can have a lot of different information associated with it. If you have a trust already and you upload it to the inbox, it'll know that it's a trust. It'll help you populate a lot of this data automatically. But legal is where those items go. One note about the legal category and trust in particular, you will see trusts replicated also in the business category. They're not duplicates. They point to the same place. There's just a hot link in each of these sections for it. So don't think that, oh, this has been duplicated in this category. They're just, at the time when we built it, there was a disagreement amongst our user base as to where this should live. So we put them in both places for now, but we'll probably have some more options for where you land those trusts in the future. But I typically recommend people start in the legal category and add your trusts and wills and powers of attorney in there. Okay. Let's not forget search. Search is important. I know we don't have much time, but search is huge. So you can search for bank accounts. You can search for passwords. Some data will be copyable right from your search, but do play around with search. It'll help you find almost everything that's in there. I'll stop now.
Yeah, we could go on longer. Thanks, Kyle. Great demo. Thanks everyone for attending. We're going to wrap up here. If you have more questions, please email support@trustworthy.com. We'd love to chat with you and help you figure out the best way to apply Trustworthy for your household or for your clients. If you have clients that you think this could be a fit for, this session is recorded. We're going to send out a link after the session. You're welcome to share that. And thank you. We'll be doing more of these in 2025, new member webinars on a recurring basis. So if you're watching this recording and you weren't able to get live questions answered today, you can attend one of those. Thank you very much. Happy holidays, everyone, and we'll see you in the new year.